morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to 1% Better, where we take a look at hidden stories in sport. I'm Xylon Fanaik, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. David Lipman. His medical question today is about blood oxygen saturation. I'm keeping up this theme, we'll do it for a little while, of normal average Joes versus elite athletes, because I think listeners find it interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. It says, at what SpO2 reading does a clinician reach for supplemental oxygen? And how low does a fit athlete saturation drop at maximal effort?
I don't think elite athletes drop sats that much. I'm not too sure. I haven't done a lot of this. I'm maybe like 2 to 3%, like
Yeah,
so
well,
97% or so.
you tell me if this makes sense. Below 90% is hypoxemia, and
Yep.
below 88% usually triggers oxygen in a clinical setting. Yet, the most aerobically gifted athletes can show exercise induced arterial hypoxemia dropping into the mid to low 80s at VO2 max.
Okay.
Paradoxically, it's the best athletes who desaturate most. Their cardiac output is so high that red cells spend too little time in the lung to fully load with oxygen. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that all sounds plausible to me. Like those numbers, like I didn't, do a lot of respiratory. Those numbers all sound real. The interesting thing, though, and we've talked about this on a previous podcast in a previous life, your drive to breathe, right? So what is making you breathe? Most people think is low oxygen. It's actually high carbon dioxide, right? So
Get
you
rid
build
of
up
it.
carbon dioxide. Yes, correct. And so that's why if you remember holding your breath underwater as a kid, if you breathed out, then you could sort of stay down a little bit longer. That air hunger, the drive to breathe dissipates a little bit because you're breathing off a bunch of CO2 and then you're waiting to then go breathe oxygen. We previously interviewed a freediver who's an ex-smoker. And I said at the time, I wonder if that has changed her sensitivity to CO2, because what you see in people who are smokers is they end up with this high level of CO2 in their blood, and so the CO2 stops being a driver for them to breathe, and they start to breathe with low oxygen. So if there's a very chronic smoker that you put oxygen on, you can often stop them breathing. So you used to see this, they would have low oxygen saturation, say 95% in the hospital, and someone would put oxygen on them and then they would stop breathing. And so it was like a good trick. It was a good trick to, like only for a little while. It's not
Yeah.
dangerous, but like the point is, like you used to see this trick as like a trap for young players. Is like, no, you should. There's like a permissible amount of reduced oxygen here for some of these people who've got like end stage like lung disease, like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or something like that. So I say all that to say our drive to breathe is predominantly CO2 buildup, but you can end up with it being driven by something else if you have enough exposure to CO2. You get a level of tolerance.
By the way, I got a favor to ask you if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet. Please, if you would subscribe to this podcast, it really helps us out with the algorithms and promotion, etc., etc. We drop a new episode every single Friday if you are new to 1% Better Hidden Stories in Sports. We are supported by Precision Fuel and Hydration. You were texting me about Western States over the weekend with some updates. How did the athletes go over there?
Precision athletes probably had a pretty rough day. Like the last couple of years, they've been getting somewhere between like 5 and sort of 7 people in the top 10 across both races, men's and women's, maybe more than that. This year it was a bit of a tough day for them. I think some of their hopefuls didn't do as well. A couple of people pulled out, had a couple of rough patches there. So probably the biggest, lots of people swung pretty hard, particularly because it was a cool year, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But the two most impressive performances or highlights for Precision, I'd say, on the women's side is Lottie Brinks, who got fifth in 16:04, which is very impressive. And then Jeff McGavro, who set the fastest ever debut last year, which we'll talk about in a little while again. But this year got seventh in 14:38. So, it was a fast year, it was a tough year, and we'll sort of talk about some of the differences between the men's and women's field there. But they both had pretty good days. I think lots of people have taken note from Precision in terms of, we talked last year to Dr. Sam Shepard about the sort of Formula One aid stations and how they were doing things. I think lots of people have taken that note or taken note of that, and there's a bit more of that happening globally. I think Precision queued off some other people and then really stepped the game up, and then other people are queuing off them now. So it was cool to see that and cool to watch that. There was, we'll talk about the amount of time taken not moving by the two winners, which I think is a great insight as well later.
Cool. Looking forward to that. If you'd like to try one of the best in the business and fuel with precision, we do have a discount code for you, 15% off your first purchase. That discount code is better2026. We have a link to it in the show notes down below as well, which will apply that directly, and a link to a cool service they have, totally free, where you can book a call with one of the experts if you want to learn to fuel better. How are you doing? You are in France, in the mountains. How are things going?
Yeah, pretty good. Enjoying walking the dog in the mornings uphill, which is nice. I haven't been able to run outside yet. I've been exclusively on the treadmill for lots of work reasons, watching Ironman Frankfurt, doing those sort of things. So I've been on the treadmill. I think I've done somewhere between 3 and 4 rounds on the treadmill so far, having been here. So it's it's not quite what I was hoping for, but here we are. We need to get these things done. But I'm settling back in. It's been a bit stressful, just sort of unpacking, sorting everything out on this end, and then dealing with a couple of things. But positive note, Marco Altini is visiting me this weekend. So looking forward to catching up with him and his wife, and they're staying for the weekend. So no doubt that he's going to put me to the absolute sword on the trails, and to be honest, probably she will too. So let's see how that goes, and I'm looking forward to that. What about you, mate? You were man down over the weekend. You told me.
Yeah, I had a stomach bug, so she's in great. On the plus side, I am at my racing weight now, which is great. Ready for hopping on a plane tomorrow to the Tour de France. So I'm in shape. I'm in shape for the race. I'm ready.
Yeah,
But geez,
you and Remco are light, and Tade and I are big. So
exactly. Precision electrolytes, thank goodness, put me back together over the weekend. But yeah, I've got a long trip, my first trip since the spinal fusion, first overseas trip since the spinal fusion. So it'll be very interesting to see how the back handles that. I've been working with the bio and the physio this week and last week, and they've been preparing me for it. So I've got all my exercises. I've got my nerve flossing to do on the plane and all of that. Got my aisle seat booked. So trying to do all of the things to be in the best possible shape. So we'll see how that goes, man. Um, we are supported by Stride Running Power Meters here, and one of their big name athletes in Dakota Papine. Did you see her race recently? We have some Stride data from that.
yeah, so they put another blog. They do a really good job with this, particularly with a couple of athletes specifically. I think they have better sort of comms with a couple of them. Charlie Lawrence is one we talked about previously. We talked about Dakota's data previously as well. And so what I think is cool here is a couple of things. The first thing is, because Dakota does this so often, you can actually see changes. So me as someone, I can go look back at other ones and I can see her changes, which is really cool to see that, because we don't get a lot of insight from these elite athletes. Dakota's an Olympian. She's an Olympic marathoner. She's one of the US best female marathoners. Like, you don't get that level of data, like wearable data floating around and insight. So I think there's some really interesting learning here. And again, like, Stride is established and they've been used in quite a few scientific papers, but I don't think we've got a great insight into purely what is normal at a population level, right?
Mhm.
But it is cool to start to see the outliers here, because the outliers can inform the norms, right? If Dakota Papane sees a certain thing, then I should probably not be disappointed if I see the same thing, right? In some respects, like if she sees a significant change in deterioration across the marathon in this, like, it's her job and I'm seeing the same. Okay, that might be normal for me. Then I shouldn't be too worried about that. So I think there's some really cool learning we can take from this. But I mean, she raced Grandma's marathon, which is like a fairly well known and popular marathon in the US. It's outside of the US, it's not really well known. She's a third time winner here, so she's won this 3 times. This is her third time winning it. She ran 2:28 after 2 months only after running Boston in 2:24. So my gut here is it's probably not a super max effort for her, and that would, I think, be borne out in some of her pacing data. So you've actually got it there from the blog article, and you can see in the first portion of the race, which is more downhill to be fair, it was 217 watts. That's the first quarter. Then the middle half, which is a little bit flatter, was 221 watts, and then the last little quarter is 224 watts. So she basically like uses more power going across that, which, and the question is like, how meaningful is some of those differences? And I think the answer is like not significant, right? I don't think it's huge differences in effort there, but I do think it's notable. So the opening quarter was 1.5% below our average. She held within 1% of average through the middle of the race, and then closed in a controlled sort of 1.5 increase above average in the final quarter. But the interesting thing is her kinematic data, so all the movement was really stable, which again says to me it probably wasn't a truly maximal effort, because you would see some
Mm.
deterioration, I think, towards the end. But you can see that she did accumulate some fatigue, right? Because even if it's a non-maximal effort, you will get fatigue running that far. So you can see her leg spring stiffness gradually declines, and her strides lengthened a little bit, with her cadence dropping in response, right? So we talked about this previously in a research article using stride, where people, to maintain the same speed or perhaps accelerate in her case, they will use a different strategy as fatigue comes into it, right? So that might be a change in cadence, it might be a change in stride length, etc. So it's quite interesting. This says to me she might have, because her leg spring stiffness went down and her strides lengthened, it says to me she might be using her shoes more, so relying more on the shoe and going more to like sort of pounding into the shoe strategy, which is quite interesting, rather than being a bit more poppy through her tendons. But that's speculation on my part.
Is that something
But
she's doing intentionally, you mean, or that just happens?
it's just your body will naturally sort of optimize to try and either maintain the output or something similar.
Okay.
But this is apparently an expected pattern. And again, this is something Stride is saying. It's like, hey, we expect this pattern. I didn't know that. That's a really interesting learning for me. And again, like when I'm then seeing this, perhaps if I do run a marathon, unlikely. But if that happens, then you can start to go, oh, okay, well, that's pretty normal, as they said. But the real interesting thing with her is that she had a significant asymmetry, or maybe not significant, but a 6% asymmetry. So differences between the left and right leg. That was now absent in this race. And that's really interesting for me, because that, I think, is one of the key differences here. Is you can now see she's obviously seen that, went to address it for some reason, and then all of a sudden it's gone, or it's no longer there, maybe not all of a sudden. And I think that's really powerful from Striders, being able to highlight that as a potential difference. And again, 6% may not be worthwhile addressing if it's only 6% between legs, but maybe at 10% it is. There's some line, right? And then you obviously correlate that with things like injury history. But I do think if you can see this in a real life setting and address it and then see benefits, I think that's really, really cool, and a really cool use case for Stride.
Very cool. If you'd like to check them out and get insight into your running with fascinating data like this, we do have a link in the show notes down below for you to check Stride out. Should we get through some community shout outs?
Yeah. So Michael Flanagan ran the UCAN town, and so the UCAN town and country 21K in 1:52. It sounds like he got some bonus kilometers there. So I used to run a races in Australia with an Australian race director who, those who know him will know him, and those who don't won't know him. And saying his name won't help. But we used to call him Ish, because he'd be like, "That's a marathon Ish." And I once finished a 50K race of his, and I was like, yo, what's the story? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, I ran 50Ks. He's like, yeah, that's the race distance. I was like, I was expecting to run 52 or 53. What's going on? Where are my bonus Ks? And he had a good chuckle. Also, some of the Stride guys, Angus and KO, they went to run the Pearl Street Mile, which is really cool. So Angus ran 5:11, and KO, ex-pro triathlete, I ran 4:31 for sixth place. So that's flying. So those guys don't just build a tech or talk about it. They're actually using it as well, which is really cool to see. And then one of my favorite humans in the world, Ian, that runs Moody Coffee Roasters. He ran the Marathon du Mont Blanc. So shout out to Ian. He ran 6:58. So he's lived a good portion of time, 10 years plus in the Valley. He started trail running a couple of years back. So it's cool to see him doing all this stuff. And then Jack Farlow, our resident pro CrossFit athlete who listens in our listenership. So he won the Xenom Global and set a new snatch PR. So that's huge from him. So great work there, Jack. And then Alistair Courtney ran the North Downs run 30K in 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Shout out to James Lemers, who went 1:12 in a half marathon. We don't know what the name is because his Strava activity is still set as morning run. I love doing that. I should do that after if I've ever done an Ironman or ultra marathons again, just leave it as morning run, morning bike. Also, shout out to long-term listener Stephen Lancaster for his great dad joke on Strava. He titled his workout, "Always mushroom for improvement," with a photo of a mushroom in there.
That's right. That tickled me right in the funny bone. I was like, this is going in the show notes. We're doing this.
Shout out to Oscar Helmerson, who ran 10K PB in SM Millen. He went 32:34 there. Previous guest Emily Horgood got 17th at Western States, while Dan Jones was a DNF on a tough day. Also previous guest on this podcast. We got some Spotify comments in based off of a discussion we had last week. You were asking me, race shirt on race day, yes or no? Heather commented and said, only an absolute casual would wear the race shirt on race day. And Boris Cortez said, nothing new on race day, period. I love this. I love it, man.
I knew this would get a rise out of people. It's a very triggering thing. I got many. I posted that story yesterday and tagged the podcast. You reposted it, and that got some questions as well and comments. So yeah, that was a race shirt. Actually, a nice race shirt from Villa Ultra. So I'll take that one, but only to the gym.
We also got an email in from Andrew Mendelson correcting us on some content we were talking about last week. He said,
It was a
hi,
couple of
guy.
weeks back, mate. It was a couple of weeks back because last week was your week to check the podcast email. So this week was my week.
He said, hi guys, loving the content. Small comment about Italy. It was stated in the discussion around Kristian Eriksson that you need extensive and expensive testing to take part in Italian races. While this is true for some races like Lavaredo, etc., they require an ECG, spirometry, and more. It's not true for many smaller events. I'm doing the Latuli Trail and Dolomiti di Brenta Trail this year, and neither require more than a doctor's signature. So there's some wiggle room and maybe tied to insurance. You can also take part in road races in a non competitive category without a medical certificate. It was further stated that there is no parkrun in Italy due to their stringent requirements. This is also not true. Italy does have parkrun. It's France that doesn't have parkrun due to their medical certificate requirements. Don't you love our listener base?
That's awesome insight from Andrew. Really appreciate this. I actually did some looking into it. It's a little bit lazy on my part, and my apologies there. And again, it's about getting it right, not being right. So I appreciate Andrew helping us on this. And apologies, it took a while for us to get to the comment there, Andrew. But I think he's right. I think this really is, part of this blind spot is because of my associations with more high performance sport, and then certainly my racing in Italy was Lavaredo, etc., as he alluded to. Although I do want to do Dolomiti di Brenta. It's on my list of races I want to do because the Dolomites are awesome. But I did find this thing. I did a bit of Googling and a bit of research and all that sort of stuff prior to this to sort of look into what he was saying. And I did find a paper here called Italian Participation Evaluation Program, Diagnostic Yield, Rate of Disqualification, and Cost Analysis. Basically, this is saying, what does it cost us and to do this sort of screening at a high level? And how many people are being discounted, right? So how many things are we actually finding? Is this worth it, right? This becomes like a bit of a cost benefit, risk benefit analysis. And so I'll cut it a little bit short here, but basically a 12-month study, they found 90% of athletes, which in this case was 5,326, were cleared basically at baseline. So you went, got tested, everything was normal. 9.8%, which is 584 people, underwent one or more further examinations. Of those, and again, that was 584, 88 of them, so 1.5%, were diagnosed to have cardiovascular disease, including 18 or 0.3% were at risk, and 31 had no cardiovascular diagnosis. So a total of 32%, which was 32, which is 5.5%, were temporarily or permanently disqualified from competitive sports. So that's kind of what we're talking about with Kristian Eriksson, right? Is like we've seen something here that would discount you maybe temporarily or permanently from sport. Right, the average cost per athlete was 79 euros, which consisted of 64 euros for the first line evaluations, and then 15 for the additional investigations. Again, that would be co-funded with the government. I'm sure that's not the actual cost of the test. I think that's to the cost of the user. So, according to the Italian model, they found a range of diseases at about 2% of apparently healthy athletes, an average cost of about 79 euros. So, to speak to the cost and prevalence issues there. So it's quite interesting to think about this and why it exists in parts of the world and not others.
Very cool. Andrew, again, thanks so much for getting in touch with us. If you'd like to reach us, we do have an email in the show notes down below, or you can DM us on Instagram, 1% Better Pod, or comment if you're listening to this on Spotify. We are partnered with Nomio on this podcast, and we've got an exciting guest joining us on their behalf. Ironman World Champion Casper Stornes, fresh off of winning Ironman Frankfurt. You and I were both glued to the TV over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great race. Really enjoyed it, and it was cool podcasting with him. I podcast a lot with his two compatriots, his two training partners. I've actually podcasted with all three of them after the World Championships last year. They were all sitting there still in their tri suits at like 9 p.m. at night, which was really rough for them. And it's just they're such lovely guys, so down to earth. He's no different. And it was really cool of him to join us. He's in the middle of some testing with Salomon. He's got some aero testing, and he sort of found some time for us in that. So we do really appreciate it on his behalf, and a pretty wide ranging conversation. A lot, he's been on podcasts. He's talked about his training. Like their training's pretty well publicized. So we talked a little bit about that, but a lot about the race, a little bit about what's upcoming, a bit about Kona, some predictions in there from him for what's going to take to win Kona, which is pretty cool. And then just for him, probably the big thing that I was interested in is like, what's it like to go from relatively unknown to basically a rock star, right? Like, how is that transition? And that was cool insight from him as well. And of course, he shared with us how he uses Nomio. So that's the cool thing. And probably the big announcement, in addition to thanks to Nomio for getting us this great guest, is that they've also given us a discount. So for listeners here, you get 20% off, single use per customer, for a limited time only. We aren't exactly sure when this will end, probably around the beginning of August. So get in soon. It's about a month worth. And so the code for this is the number 1, then the percent sign, and then Nomio, all in capital letters, and then the number 20. So that is in our show notes, that code that you can then copy across if you want, and use it there. And of course, if you can follow the link in our show notes coming from us, that would also be helpful to show them that you've come from us and that you're using our code there. We do really appreciate it. Go try out some Nomio, see how you go. Casper talks extensively about how he uses it. If you use as much as Casper, then please let us know. But otherwise, we do appreciate you all, and we appreciate Nomio.
Let's have a look at what's come across my desk. Some quick bits from this week. NIL has been a talking point quite often for us, but there's been a big shift in the NIL landscape in the last week. What is that?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about some of the issues with NIL, like are we just importing a foreign national team to come run for us, etc. Right? Are we beholden to develop American athletes? What does NIL look like? And probably the big thing here is about eligibility. And eligibility is like, are you able to compete for the college? So historically, we also talked about Louis Hinchcliffe, the American who sort of became pro and then went back, which is kind of against eligibility. It's a bit weird. Historically, it's kind of you had to be a student athlete. Now NIL has changed that, right? You can be sponsored or whatever, but you also had a limited eligibility. So to this point, prior to this ruling, and ongoing for the next little while until the ruling comes into place, you basically had 4 seasons of eligibility and 1 redshirt year, right? So you basically had 5 years, a 5-year clock. One of those years you could say I'm redshirting, which is like the term they use for basically being injured. So you come into college, you compete for 2 years, you get injured, you have a year off, but you're still at college, you're studying, but you're not competing, and then you compete for 2 more years. For instance, some of the colleges would force freshmen to have a year off because they weren't going to be able to compete for their redshirt year. But then if you get injured, then you don't have another redshirt year, right? So that's kind of an ethical discussion. Not that interested. The more interesting thing here, though, is that there was also quite a few exceptions that you could have exceptions to this eligibility. And there's guys who've had 8 years of eligibility because of COVID and all sorts of stuff. It's a bit weird. But now the new eligibility rules are 5 seasons of eligibility and a 5-year clock. Very simple. The clock starts when you enroll in college full time or you're 19 years old, whichever comes first. And there's some exceptions, right? So the exceptions that are established are like military service, religious mission, or pregnancy. And this will all start in the fall of 2027 with those enrollments, or current athletes will generally be grandfathered in, get what's better for them, whatever gives them more eligibility. So like the impacts here are pretty wide ranging. It sounds pretty minor, but like there's recruiting implications, like who are you recruiting, when are you recruiting them, and like how you're managing that roster as a result. So what are you going to have outgoing now? And so the transition period is going to be the hardest. Once it's established, it's pretty simple. Get a bunch of 19-year-olds, they go through, get a new set of 19-year-olds every year. So recruiting's there. There's obviously NIL has a big difference here because you have to be younger. So that changes the risk for the brands. It changes how you're going to find these kids, etc. So high school recruiting is going to be a much bigger part here. And then, of course, eligibility strategy and career planning. So what your careers look like will be different, right? Do you take time off? Do you not take time off before going to college? What does that look like, etc.? How long do you stay in college? What does that do to eligibility? So, yeah, all very interesting stuff. But I found this to be quite interesting. I spoke to a previous college athlete, an Elite 15 High Rocks racer recently about this, and she was quite fascinated.
Cool. Thanks for finding that update for us, son. And then Western States, one of the biggest trail runs in the world, just took place this weekend. What went down?
Well, firstly, shout out to Mario Frioli, previous guest. He coached the winner. And there's a
Ah,
video of Mario getting a high five from Vincent on the track, which is super cool. So I sent him a very nice message. He's still on cloud nine. He's very excited about it. So I'm stoked for Mario. So I just wanted to give him a shout out up front about that. But I guess one of the things that caught my eye before the race, this is the first time poles have been able to be used in Western states. Like poles are a bit controversial in the US. They're very established in Europe. In the US, not a lot of races use them or they're not necessarily allowed. And so you could use them in Western states, which is really interesting. And poles are funny because there are different rules in different races. So in some races, you're allowed to use poles, but you have to finish with them if you start with them, and you can't pick them up. So you start and finish with them.
mhm.
In some races, like Western states, you can use them for portions and not others, and so those rules become interesting. But it was just an observation I made there. You certainly wouldn't be using these poles. I think if you had to carry them all the way to the finish line, no one would use them. Uh, People might use them up the early phases in the high country, but by the end of the high country, no one's using them anymore. I don't think it's just probably not worth it. Or they may be through some of the canyons. Anyway, this was the highest ever finish rate, which speaks to how much cooler it was. So it was quite cool. You saw people actually in warm weather gear, which is often, there's sometimes snow. Like the last women's world record is the year that Courtney Dauwalter broke the record, I think 2019. And that was a snowy year up high. So you have this, it starts up high in the high country. It can often be cool there. But as soon as it gets into the canyons, it's quite hot, right? So we're talking, high 30 degrees up to 40 degrees Celsius, and that's hundreds and somethings Fahrenheits, right? So very high. This is a lot cooler through those canyons, which allows for a quicker pace because that's later in the race as well. Um, so those are sort of just the sort of context here. Looking at the results, this was strange but kind of cool. If you look at the results, the top 16 finishers were the top 10 men and then the top 6 women. So they finished like that in a block, which was really interesting. It's pretty rare, and I think there was like another man and then another woman as well. So I think there were 7 women in the top 20, which is not uncommon, but they're usually more interspersed, I guess.
I wonder if that's,
Um,
let's see if that's a trend that repeats itself again. I wonder if that speaks to how close the competition are to each other and how the race was raced. Interesting.
uh, I mean, I need to look at this historically. I think there's historically it's been a bit more interspersed. I think it's pretty normal for a bulk of the top 10 women to finish in the top 20, but I don't know how many. But we also had a lot of attrition in the men's race. We're going to get to this in a second. But starting off, like the debutante at the distance and at this race, Jen Lichter won the women's race and broke Courtney Dauwalter's record again. It
Wow.
was seemingly untouchable. She broke it by basically 90 seconds. So she ran 15:28. Now, again, the context is it's a much cooler year, right? But that doesn't diminish the run. Her debut at the distance and did really well. She had a stoppage time of 10 minutes. Right, so we alluded to this before. So she spent, of 15 hours and 28 minutes, 10 of those minutes were not moving, which is interesting. So we talked about the Formula One aid stations and what she was doing. She may or may, I can't remember if she had a shoe change. I need to look into that. Let us know. If you do know us, let's send us a message or comment on Spotify. Vincent Brouillard won the men's race. So he's now one of 7 people, 4 of which are men, to have won both Western States and UTMB.
Hmm.
So the
Wow.
other people who've won them, Kilian Jornet, of course, Jim Walmsley, of course, Tom Evans, of course, Courtney Dauwalter, of course, Katie Scheid, and Ruth Croft. Right, so you're talking about
Wow.
basically
Big names.
yeah, you're talking about 3 of the considered probably top 5 consensus top 5 trail runners of all time, and then a bunch of very good trail runners in addition. One thing to note with people like Anne Trayson, etc., the OG greats, UTMB only started as a race in 2003, and so it was not particularly popular for a while. So a lot of this has got a lot of recency bias because of the sort of course, the sort of stature of those races in those times. But Vincent ran a course record, breaking Jim Walmsley's record. He's the first man under 14 hours. So he ran 13 hours, 40 minutes, and Jim's record was 14:09. So that's a huge win. And interestingly, Vincent was sort of took the lead quite late in the race, but he only had 6 minutes of stoppage time. Right, so a little bit quicker there. And he is the first Frenchman and 5th European to win it. Right. So the rest of the top tens, Vincent, we talked about Francesco Pupi on debut at the distance, the Italian man who's been a great runner, who I'm a big fan of. He got second in 13:51. At Ryan Montgomery, who we're going to talk about in a second. Got third, Tom Carden, Zach Miller, one of the fan favorites. If you get the video of him finishing on the track, please watch it. I've never seen a guy run so hard around this track, and no one was around him. He was just running because that's what he does. He was 6 minutes ahead. Like, yeah. Anyway, Adam Peterman, previous winner, was sixth. Jeff McGavro, we talked about earlier from Precision, fastest debutant last year, was eclipsed by Francesco Pupi, who was on debut this year. Kenyon Woodward, Will Murray, and then Hiroki Kai was in 10th. So as we said, Francesco took the fastest ever debut. The women's top 10, Jen Lichter, we talked about already, Riley Brady, Marianne Hogan. Caitlin Fielder was in 4th. She came from like 13th at one point. She came from the back of the field, reminiscent of Ruth Crofts to some degree. She was further back in the field, though, than Ruth was at UTMB a couple of years back, where she just tore through the second half. So I'm thinking if Caitlin comes back next year and has an okay year, she's a chance at like really shaking up the podium, potentially winning this thing, depending on who else is there. But she's in good form. Lottie Brinks, we talked about, in 5th. Tara Dower was in 6th. Fujiao Zhang in 7th. Fiona Pascal Labrit in 8th. Hao Ha was in 9th. And then Hannah Allgood was in 10th. So for those interested, Molly Seidel, who we talked about with Mario Ferroli, who everyone was picking for a big day, had a really tough day out. I think she learned a lot about the distance from everything I've read from her. She got 24th, so props to her for finishing. Easy to DNF, and there was a high DNF rate. We talked about Ryan Montgomery. He's sponsored by Janji, which is cool, but he doesn't have a shoe sponsor. He takes periodic shoe sponsorships. So for this race, he raced for La Sportiva. He signed a short-term contract with La Sportiva for this race. Last year, he raced for Norda, who sponsors Rachel Entrekin at this race. And at UTMB last year, he ran for Hoka. So he's taking short-term shoe deals and a primary apparel deal, which I think is really interesting for the sport and very different and really cool. So he gets to have a bit of a play with all that stuff. The women's top 10 was 50 minutes faster than ever. So as a top 10, they were 50 minutes faster. The men were not. The men were not faster than they were before. So it looks like, and if you see some of the stuff, the men went really hard. Like Hans Troyer led from the front and blew up a little bit. So I think he caused a little bit of carnage up front there. And I think that played into some of the DNFs we saw. I mean, we had lots of DNFs, not all related to this, right? So Killian came in under a bit of an injury crowd. He was a DNF. Jim was a DNF. Dan Jones was a DNF. Martina Milnarczyk was a DNF. Ingvild Kaspersen was another DNF. There was somebody else before that I was thinking about that was another big name that was a DNF. So quite a few DNFs there. So that will happen. And it's always interesting to think about, does that happen more on hot or cold days? Because on hot days, it's hot. But on cold days, people go hard. So it's this like interesting balance of like, how close do you get to the fire without getting burned?
Very cool. And then I wanted to talk about women's 800. We have alluded to it before, but it seems like a crazy time at the moment for the women's 800 on the track with Audrey Wero, Femke Brutus-Boll, and Keely Hodgkinson. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it's been interesting. So corrections corner again from last week. I mentioned Femke wasn't going to race Audrey anytime soon or whatever. She'd already raced her. And I think what was actually, and I mentioned she was going to get beaten pretty convincingly, and she did previously and again in Paris, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think what was happening is Femke just wasn't traveling. Like there's no need for her to travel outside, and so she wasn't going to go do traveling, right? So there was that. So we talked about the Paris Diamond League, or this is what we're going to get to, and it was heat affected, as was Nice Ironman, which was cancelled, Frankfurt, which was shortened, as we allude to with our guest later. But in the Paris Diamond League, one thing to note with these hot events, it's actually better for everybody who's not doing true endurance, like long endurance stuff. So basically beyond middle distance, they suffer, but everyone else actually prefers the heat because the track's a little bit faster. It's a little bit easier to throw and stuff. So there was a lot of really good performances, probably 3 or 4 Diamond League records at the Paris Diamond League. So that, and when we say Diamond League records, that's not a Paris Diamond League record. That is the best ever performance in a Diamond League. So it's quite atypical. So specifically looking at the 800s, so Wero won, and she ran a 1:53.80 to win this race. So that is she was already third fastest of all time. That puts her a little bit further closer
she was convincing in this race. Wow, very impressive.
Yeah, she was. So she split 600 in 1:25.27, which is important because she recently ran the European record European best over 600 meters in 1:22.85. Now, why is this important? The world record for the 600 is what Mary Moraa ran, which is 1:21.63. And I think you probably need to be in and around that time to break the world record for the 800 meters, or Audrey Wero needs to be to do that. So she's probably a second out over 600 meters off it to get then the 800 meter time down, it doesn't translate directly. It's probably a little bit bigger, but yeah, I think she needs to be in and around Mary Moraa's time. Well, it's not quite a second. It's under a second to do that. But So she's now half a second behind the record. Keely is sixth on the all-time list, and Casa Semenya is fifth on the all-time list. And there's a bunch of other people ahead of them, obviously. Femke's got a huge PB at this race. She got pulled along. She got dragged along and looked pretty comfortable. I'm trying to understand if she's racing maximally a lot. She never looks like she's really gone that hard. But
Hard to read her.
yeah, I mean, she ran 155.6 for second, so she's just skipped running 156 altogether. Which is interesting. So this is quite. I'm interested in what role this is playing in Keely, right? And so Keely was sort of the like physically and metaphorically blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. Everyone was like, she's the next one. She's going to do it. She's going to break this record. Now Audrey Wero's knocking on the door, and it's like, what role is that playing in pressure on Keely, and what's that doing to Keely? And maybe the answer is she's thriving in it. Some people thrive in this pressure. There's no question. I'm not questioning Keely's medal. I'm just saying it's an interesting question to ask because some people don't like the pressure, right? We talked on this episode to Casper, and he's talking about how great it is to train with Kristian. You're training with one of the greatest of all time. Like, that is not easy, right? So some people like it, some people don't. What I'm getting at here is Keely's under a bit of an injury cloud, and you wonder what the decision-making is around that based on this world record potential, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have answers here, and I'm not speculating. It's questions I'm asking myself as somebody who, from a sports science perspective.
Can't wait to see the three of them on the start line together in the same race. Cannot wait. Off the back of lots of discourse, it looks like the Olympic athletes may actually be able to receive some pay. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks. Controversial statements from the IOC president saying athletes should not earn prize money. Has there been some updates on that?
Yeah, this is a pretty big update, and it probably hasn't gotten the media that it should have. Given all the noise it was made when Kirsty Coventry put her foot in her mouth, this should probably have made a lot more noise.
Positive news is not interesting.
Never. So the International Olympic Committee announced that all athletes who compete at an Olympic Games are now eligible for $10,000 described as a fit for the future grant, provided they have fulfilled the IOC's integrity obligations. We'll get to that in a second. So IOC member and former NBA star Pau Gasol was a Spanish basketballer, played for the Lakers. So he's head of the IOC Athletes Commission. He announced the project, which will be the first initially open to the 2,900 athletes who competed in the 2026 Milan Cortina Winter Games. So it's cool that they're backdating this. So around 11,000 athletes due to compete in the Los Angeles Olympics Summer Games can also apply for the grants, which totals about 110 million in grants at the Olympics. So if they meet eligibility criteria, which includes not testing positive for doping. So you receive your money 6 months after, based on after competing, providing you haven't tested positive. I mean, I don't know what happens if they get sued later to give that money back if they test them retroactively, because they can test your samples for years in advance, so years after the fact. So they receive their money 6 months, and it's not based on earnings. So these NBA players can apply for this. When pushed on that, it sounded like Gasol sort of said, like, what we'll do is we'll give them options for charities to donate to for it. So I think he's sort of suggesting they can apply for this, they can get that money. We're going to try and nudge them to donate that money. And again, they have to apply for it. So there is a barrier there that people are going to avoid. Like, it's probably not worth LeBron James's time to apply for a $10,000 grant. Like, it actually probably costs him more than $10,000 to do that.
Yeah,
so I don't
it's not
think
worth the paperwork.
no, so I don't think he'll do it. So yeah, I think this is an interesting space. I mean, 11 million doesn't sound like a lot of money. Or sorry, 110 million doesn't sound like a lot of money if you're giving every athlete $10,000. But apparently they've done the math on this. So I don't know. I assume they've got an assumed rate of positive tests and not applying. Is my hunch here.
Interesting times. Right, let's get to a very cool chat with he's not up and coming, he's a world champion. He's here. I'm just meaning by that, I think we're still going to see a lot more from him. He is impressive every time we look at him. So very exciting.
Yep.
Casper Stornes is a professional triathlete and current Ironman world champion. Making the performance more impressive, he was in his first Ironman world championship in Nice, where he won as part of a Norwegian podium sweep, reminiscent of his breakout performance at the WTCS race in Bermuda in 2018, when Norway became the first country to sweep the podium putting him and his compatriots of the Norwegian Hype Train on the map. Beyond that, Casper unbelievably successful 2025 season included a third place at the 70.3 World Championships and a second in the Ironman Pro Series. Prior to starting his full-time long-distance triathlon racing, Casper's short course triathlon career included a mixed relay gold in the European Games and a bronze in the individual race at the European Championships, as well as representing Norway in the Tokyo Olympics. Casper's dominant run from Frankfurt should probably not be too surprising given his World Athletics profile boasts a 10,000 meter time of 30:49 and an impressive 5K of 13:59. And he tells us that Gustav has not achieved a sub 14 yet, so he's very proud of that. Casper joins us fresh off becoming the first man to win an Ironman 90.2 distance in Frankfurt to claim a European championship and hoping to break both the Frankfurt curse as well as becoming the first Norwegian to win a world championship after his first attempt. Casper, I'm not usually nervous when guests come on. I'm nervous for you. I don't know. I'm nervous about you being here. I don't know why, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us, particularly so close to your race in Frankfurt, of course, and spending some time with sponsors, etc. at the moment. So we talked a little bit offline before, and you're all over the place. So we appreciate you, and we will acknowledge that the heart out you have. But I came across something. I've seen lots of discourse about you being from Bergen, but then I also saw that you were born in Askow, and I did a little bit of research, and it looks close by. But do you identify as being from Bergen or Askow, or how do you think about it?
I'm born in Bergen, but then I lived 4 years at Askow, but I've lived most outside of Askow. So I see myself as a Åsabuing. That's where Gustav also lives. So I lived there for 8 years now.
Okay. So from Bergen-ish.
From Bergen. I'm from Bergen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. And the next question I had, I noticed, you grabbed a flag from a fan very early and you gave them a bit of a Norwegian row. And then I saw that the finishing shoot was full of Norwegian rowing. How was that? Yeah. Is that something that it's obviously very unique given the World Cup being on at the moment. Is that something you sort of enjoyed?
Yeah, we were sitting up in St. Moritz before the race, and then we saw the rowing, and me and Gustav were just like talking, should we do this if we take 1 and 2? Yes, but only if we take 1 and 2. If not, it's just like awkward. So then I needed to do it, and I saw also Gustav did it at towards the finish line. And then the day after at the award ceremony, we got everyone joining, doing it. So it was cool. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
It sounds good when a fully crowd says row is something. It looks like it sounds like the Vikings. So it's a bit cool.
I like that a lot. So your run in Frankfurt on the race, you look like you're a little bit more aggressive. I spoke to Gustav last night on the other podcast, and he said that you historically, and certainly my perception as well, you've started a little bit more conservatively, but you looked to go out quite hard in Frankfurt. Was that a decision you made specifically, or is that something that just happened because you were feeling good?
I were running the same pace the whole race. So I were not running slower the last lap. I were actually going out quite controlled also. So I felt I had more to give the last lap. So I could, if I had someone pushing me there, I would run quite much faster the last lap. So so I had quite good control, I would say.
What I'm taking from that is you're trying to give Gustav a couple extra points for the Ironman Pro Series.
Yeah. But it's also like when you are in that situation, it's like when you have 1.5 minutes and then it jumps up to 2 minutes and a little bit more, then it's like you are not squeezing it down. So it's you don't have so much to run for, and then it's like it's also, if you push it more again, then it could be a risk of potentially blowing up. But like you take those risks if I needed to chase or getting chased or have something battling it in the end. So Yeah.
I was going to say, there's also like a bit of a, we joked offline before that you're not really recovering from an Ironman because, the run wasn't quite as far and whatever else. But
Yeah.
there's also a component, if you really push that, the recovery cost is significant, right? And you've got,
Yeah.
yes, you want to win that race, but you've got an eye on 70.3 World Championships and the Ironman World Championships this year, which are the ultimate goals.
Yeah, like I knew since the distance is shorter, the recovery time is less, and also if I were running 2 minutes faster, it costs also more in the heat. But I felt like it gave me some good answers in general, like how comfortable 3:20 pace were, and if I had been running 10 to 15 seconds slower per k for a marathon, I think that would be quite good that day. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I could have run a 2:30 that day if I needed to. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's big
So
news.
yeah, I took some good or some positive things from that race, and yeah, will take it with me in the preparation towards Kona. Yeah.
Can you talk to me about transition? You and Gustav were so calm and smooth in there, whereas like Jamie Riddle, the South African, he had grabbed the wrong bag and had to go back and take his bag. Is that something you focus on, or are you just paying attention and you're concentrating, or have you got it wrong before? But why did your transition look so smooth in T2?
Uh, no, like my bag is of course to the end of the rack, so then I of course know that's my bag. But I didn't saw that Jamie took the wrong bag. If not, I would have probably told him that
Well,
you are not number 3.
Gustav said last night he noticed and didn't say anything. So you're a
Yeah,
better
but
guy than Gustav.
yeah, but like yeah, I don't know, but like yeah, it is what it is. But like he were recovering quite quickly from it and had a quite good transition. So he were running with Gustav or run past Gustav, I don't know, in the start, and then Gustav bridged up again and run faster. So, but yeah, I just I always look at the transition when I'm at the races before the race and see where I'm at and where I should go so I can save most time and I'm not like insecure of where I'm gonna go or where my stuff are. So yeah, I do visualize and prepare myself for what I'm gonna do to make it easier for me myself. Yeah,
They say certainly in trail running with like aid stations is smooth is fast. Right, so
yeah,
it's about being calm and smooth rather than being frantic in there. Because if you're frantic, the worst is watching someone trying to put on socks when they're frantic and they're
yeah,
wet and they can't get it happening, or take off a wetsuit. Right,
yeah,
so you need to be smooth and calm with it. I think is the way to do it. That's the most efficient way.
yeah, yeah. Typically, like also, I like to have things aligned into the competition and like things is gonna be like proper smooth. But I know like during the race things can go not the way I want also. So I try to visualize things to prepare myself so I know that things can go wrong and scenarios and stuff like that. But it makes me more calm also that I have already gone through things to visualize it and see it. Yeah. So
Yeah, and you've obviously made your life's changed a lot in the last 18 months, right? I think 18
yeah.
months ago, you were probably, you were well known, but I think less so outside of, say, true triathlon fans. And now you're probably well known across all endurance sport, I would say. How's that transition been? Like, how are you finding, sponsor commitments are one of them. We just talked to you before about all that stuff, but you've also got new fans and Instagram and all that stuff. How's that all going?
Yeah, it was a change from a day to another after Nice. So like before Nice, I could walk in the streets by myself, and yeah, of course, someone noticed me. But like when we were out running with Gustav and Kristian, it was coming fans over all the time. Like one day on a promenade, it was a big gang of Taiwanese guys that were just running up to Gustav and Kristian, wanted to take selfie and stuff like that. And then I was just running a little bit in front and for myself. So it's a bit of a change now. And yeah, but it's also good. Like it's nice that it's so many spectators and fans that look on the sport and think it's cool, the performance and the stuff we do. So I think we make a good show in the Ironman scene. So and also with the sponsor, sponsoring thing has been also a complete change. But it's also, I see it's more as a privilege to be lucky to have so good sponsors along the way now. So I'm lucky, I would say. Yeah.
I think that's true, but there's no, there's always a cost to it, right? Like the cost is time and
Yeah, yeah.
energy and all those things. So, and I think people hearing that and hearing that part is hopefully they would be generally respectful of things. I think there are respectful ways to come up and talk to athletes and spend time, and less respectful ways. And you don't currently have children, but I'm sure when that happens, if that happens, that you'd prefer them if they came up away from your children, for instance, as an example. So there's that
Maybe.
stuff.
I'm not in that situation yet, so
Yeah, long way off. Long way off. But
we'll see.
yeah.
Yeah.
And has that changed? That change from, I guess, let's call it just as you started last year training with the boys again. Has that changed from there to say now? What's the biggest change within the group as having won? Because I think your profile changes, but did that change much in the group or not really?
No, we have the same structure and respect in the group anyway. So I don't see myself over anyone, and no one else see themselves over anyone. So everyone is at the same page, and it's it's a nice thing actually. Since then we are focusing on the next goal instead of like thinking of what we have done, and just rather focus on what's ahead and try to build each other up. And like since I beat them in Nice and are a competitor, someone could think like then you should hold something back, but we think completely different. It's better that we are 1, 2, and 3 than 3, 5, 7. So of course you want to win, but we share everything, and then it's more about the mental part on the day, and that makes it exciting and also makes me and them to go the extra mile to take that victory. Yeah. So, and then it's sweet. It's a sweeter victory than if you hold something back. And since then you really know I won on the day since I were the best and nothing else. Yeah.
What a day.
Yeah, what a day. How do the 2 days compare, that 2018 in Bermuda versus last year in Nice? Obviously you won both days. So, that's always nice, but I mean, one of them is a big breakout for you in a, slightly more obscure situation, and one's like a really big deal from a media perspective. So how did the two compare?
You can't compare them. Like Ironman and Nice is so much bigger. Like you can't compare it. So it's so much bigger in terms of like media, sponsors, fans, everything. Like it's so much bigger. So Bermuda, it was like an eye opener maybe that I'm have a potential in short distance, but Nice really put me on the map like as the best in the world. In long distance triathlon. So it's something different. But Gustav is the only one that has the original Ironman World Championship Kona. So that I want. So
I'm sure he lets you know about it too.
Yeah, he wants it also. So
So let's talk about training with the group, in the Norwegian group. Let's start with, what is the worst thing about training with the two of them before we get to the best thing?
The worst thing is that I maybe can change the program just before the session. Like now we do something different. So I'm more where I need to have a bit like uh, yeah, know what we're gonna do, than more changing. So more security, but they are a little bit more playful in that area, so they can change. But like it's not like drastically something totally different, but it's more like maybe it's just doing a little bit longer since they feel for, or yeah, something like that. And then yeah, so that's maybe a thing I struggle a little bit with sometimes. But yeah, think I'm good also in communicating that, or shooting in like, now it's a bit longer than we are planned, and then kind of giving an open question. But yeah, we are it's room for saying things, and yeah, no one gets butthurt or anything if yeah, I may be the one with the biggest temper, so I could be a bit angry sometimes. So yeah, but they know, and they are actually quite good in letting me ventilate, and then they know that it's nothing bad in it when I say things. They let me ventilate, and then they know. Then they come over to me, hey, don't be so mad, or they just say something, and then I can be either in the moment I'm just like get away from me, or and then I'm a little bit quiet, or then I smile, and we are joking about it. So, but yeah, they are very good in letting me be me, to be honest.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the best part? Because I don't know if you guys know how lucky you are to have that group. It's something special, and it's something we're witnessing in a moment in time in triathlon. I was talking to a professional triathlete the other day, and he was saying just the titles that have come out of your little group, out of this one corner of the world, is mind blowing and insane. But what is the best thing about having that training group?
The best thing is that we have it insanely fun when we are out traveling. Many see it as a sacrifice. For example, sitting in Sierra Nevada for 5 weeks up in a mountain. Like, you think it's quite boring sitting up there training and eating and sleeping. But we are three best friends traveling around the world and doing what we love and just having fun. That's yeah, we are quite privileged to be able to do what we want to do and have it as our job. So yeah, of course, you can say I sacrifice time with my girlfriend at home, but yeah, I know I need to do this, and then it's a time for things later. And you better do the work properly when you first are away. But yeah, I see you can kind of see we have it as a hobby, going and doing what we love. So yeah, it's just fun. And also that we have the group as we have with so much knowledge, we are just very lucky. And yeah, I would say we are the best training group in the world.
Well, I mean, results would tend to agree on certainly on a per
Yeah.
capita basis. I don't think there's too much debate. Now, I saw the video that was put out last year. You know, the boys were giving you quite a bit of grief about the fact that you didn't have anything put up at the pool, and now you have your
Yeah.
area at the pool. How is it around Bergen? You talked about being in Nice and the boys being swamped. How is it for you three in Bergen? Is it something where you're noticed? Do people know you? Do they stop you? Or is Bergen a little bit easier?
It's a bit easier for sure. But like after Nice, I were like out cycling, and then suddenly people came over and said like, great race, that was well deserved. That was something new. But yeah, it's not very common that people come over. I think someone know who we are in the athletic environment in Bergen or in Oslo and in Norway. But yeah, the normal person in the street doesn't maybe know us so much. But we are a little bit more known outside of Norway. But yeah, it's not like the football players.
Yeah, it's not like
So
young Erling, where
Yeah.
he'd be stopped in the street for sure. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
And
we are not there.
Yet.
Kristian starts actually to be quite okay. So people know very well about him, I would say. Yeah. So it's happening. I've personally felt it's happening something in the last 2 years. Kristian is very good going out in podcast or doing stuff. So he's very good in being active in social media and stuff like that. So that's something that actually I'm a bit inspired by, like how good he is promoting himself and triathlon, and yeah, making the character he actually is.
He makes it look
So
effortless. He makes it look so easy.
yeah, but yeah, he is very good in yeah, marketing himself and actually showing who he is. So yeah,
I think Gustav is hesitant to do so, but when he does it, he's good. And I
yeah,
think,
I
of
agree.
course, I think this is something you start. Your opportunities changed, right? Like the number of
Yeah,
podcast visits, invitations you got prior to the World Championships was probably not many, and probably the day you finished the World Championships, it probably went up 100%,
yeah,
maybe 200%.
yeah.
So we appreciate you joining us here, and that has been, it's been great to have you. So we do appreciate that. But on to looking forward, you got 70.3 World Championships. You've got Kona coming up. You're
Mhm.
obviously in good shape, but you didn't beat Gustav wearing the cap on the weekend. So is that a concern for you, or are you confident enough that the cap doesn't matter?
I am confident enough that I will do well in Kona. So, but of course, a lot can happen. So I must not jinx myself. But yeah, I think the the position I'm in now. So if I do things right, I can have a good momentum into the two championships. So I see Nice as a preparation and Kona as the final goal. Yeah, so all my races this season has been a preparation for, or is a preparation for Kona. Uh, so yeah, I see it as Kona, Nice, Frankfurt, Pro Series.
Oh, wow. So Frankfurt more than Pro Series.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that's very cool. I mean, you're in a good spot on the Pro Series. I had a look overnight. I think you're second at the moment in the Pro Series. So
yeah,
you're probably, I mean, listen, if you win Kona and or you win Nice, there's probably a good
yeah,
chance that you win the Pro Series. That's the reality of it.
Who is
So,
first currently?
yeah. Kristian, but he has a
okay.
race more than me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has 170.3 more than me. So, but yeah, I it looks good, but a lot can happen, and yeah, it's yeah, it's a lot of it's 11 hours more of racing this season, ish, approximately. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, a lot can happen in those hours.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I like that.
Hmm.
And I heard you talking pre-race about the Frankfurt curse. And we sort of alluded
Yeah.
to it before. What's the Frankfurt curse?
Kristian has won 2 times a row in Frankfurt, but he didn't win Kona the same year. Jan, I think, have done it. Was it 2019?
Yeah.
And then won Frankfurt and Kona. But this year it was half the distance, so it was not the original distance. So
Okay.
then I delete that curse, and that's why I didn't wait for Gustav, since I told on the before the race that I would wait for Gustav, since then he can take the curse, and I show that I would have won, but he can take it. So, but now since it was half the distance, I deleted it, and then we are good.
Okay. But now
So
if you win Kona, is the curse gone or is it still there? Because you've deleted it, but is it only half?
if I win, then the curse is
Yep.
not on me anymore. Then
Okay.
then I can win Frankfurt next year and don't have a problem.
Okay.
So
Understand the
yeah,
logic. I'm
yeah,
just checking.
yeah. Since then I've shown that it's not me, it's someone else, or the curse is taking me. So yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about long distance triathlon this year. We've seen a change to the 20-meter rule. drafting wise. Now, my thought was that this was going to change run speeds for the worse. It would make them slower. We've probably seen the opposite.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense as to what's going on, or perhaps why that's happening, or anything like that?
The thing is that when you move the drafting distance, like from 12 to 20, then the aerodynamic has so much more to say. And the way, especially like me, Gustav, are sitting on a bike, I would say we are probably the ones who have the fastest position in the field, and can push less power. So then we can still run quite fast compared to the others. Like when I heard Sam Long and Lionel Sanders pushing 320, 330 watts, and I'm pushing 270 for a full distance.
Wow.
It's quite less power I'm producing and can save it for the run. And yeah, the way I am training now, we're actually in the lab with Olav now before I went to altitude. It's actually a long time since I've been in the lab, but it was good to test. And we see that I think I'm close to 90% efficient.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm very efficient and producing not so much heat when I'm running at race pace, on Ironman pace, or above Ironman world record pace. Yeah.
So
and also on the bike.
Yeah, sorry, on the bike.
Yeah, on the bike also, I produce very not so much heat, and I'm very efficient. So, yeah.
Wow. So for context for listeners, generally we quote 80% as a very like sort of normal value. You might get a little bit below that as an elite athlete.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 90%, which means that
close up to.
Yeah.
So he didn't give me an exact number, but close up to 90%, and that's actually quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're producing much less heat than other people are for the same number of like watts on the bike or pace on the run. So you produce less heat there. So generally, you produce, I guess, more heat, and most of the energy we produce as humans is lost to heat. So that's quite interesting. That bodes really well for hot races. So we probably shouldn't be surprised by how you ran on Sunday in Frankfurt, and we should probably be excited for what we can see in Kona.
Yeah, I think so. I of course need to do the heat prep and stuff like that. So I need to get into it and do the preparation properly. So it's not like I can't just like jump into it. And but yeah, I have the possibility there to do something good, and then I need to prepare for it also. So it's a lot of preparation and stuff like that behind that I need to do before the race. So yeah. But
of course,
I have a good chance, and my body is adapted in a good way. So yeah.
And we saw you and Gustav doing a bit of last-minute heat training before Frankfurt on social media.
Yeah.
Just Xylon doesn't believe me how much clothing you were wearing. What were you wearing at the time?
I had two jerseys, like wool or super jersey, or like, yeah. And then I had one rain jacket and one rain jacket outside of that again, and then a tights and a rain pant. And then a buff and a beanie, and then took the hats over. Yeah. Yeah. I also did a little bit more heat training than Gustav in altitudes. I think I had 2 sessions more. Plus, I was sitting. I started a little bit with like sitting in a hot bath after my last session of the day, mid camp there. So then I sat like up to 30 minutes there with like hot water, sweating. So that I also think was okay. But I had a really hard, I bought like a rain coat before I was traveling, and took that under my rain, the Salomon raining coat and pant. And the black jacket I had with that raincoat underneath, it was like it didn't want to breathe, and then the black raincoat were like getting all the heat underneath the raincoat again. So I was like, yeah, I was boiling, and I needed to start walking after 30 minutes. So then I went into the shop, buy some drink, and then I needed to sit down for like 5 minutes since I was so cooked. But I think it was a good heat stimuli stress, and yeah, I think that one was quite good. And the same when we came to Frankfurt when it was over 40 degrees and I had so much clothing on. It was a very good heat stress in it. So yeah, but it's not smart to do that all the time. So you need to like run properly also. So I had that heat session, and then I had a little bit more passive session the day after with like a tight and a t-shirt and a sweater out there. So then I could run faster, but still sweating. And then I had um, a run on the Friday where I did a little bit of efforts, since then I get a little bit of core temperature, but like it was just a little around 10 minutes with like running like a little bit over threshold in the heat.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Not a full prep, but a good enough prep, and certainly not to
yeah,
be tried at home for the listeners. It's a bit intense, some of that stuff, particularly at altitude. So
yeah. In altitude it can be hard, but I know it works quite well. And when I come down from altitude and still do heat, then it works very well when I come into the competition. But then I stop with heat 2 days before the race, but run midday on the Friday if the race is on Saturday. So I still get some heat, but with not so much clothing, because then it feels easier also.
You are gonna
Yeah.
die in the Norwegian winter. I'm telling you now, you're gonna die, man.
Yeah, I do actually prefer the heat better than the cold. So in wintertime, I don't feel so good when because of the cold air. I don't know why. So I don't manage to ventilate properly. But I feel like when I come to 20 degrees and up to like 40, 45 degrees, then I'm dancing. Then I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I don't know why, but I've always loved heat, and it feels better. I don't like so much heat training. We're like taking the clothes on. It's a bit claustrophobic, but I need to do it to perform. So, but I've been thinking about since I'm looking for a house now. So if I'm gonna buy a house, I want to have a proper training room and then build a heating room
sauna,
in there, so I can have a sauna kind of, so I can do heat prep or more controlled heat prep in there. So since it can vary with the clothing you have on from time to time, I feel, and then I have it more controlled when I have it in a room and have a compressor that can uh, generate heat in a room. So yeah.
That's super cool. It's I know Kristian's got his pain cave. Gustav was telling me
Yeah.
last night that he's buying an altitude simulator for his room. So
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah, I
have got
think we are talking with someone also, so maybe in the future when I get a house that I can get it into the training room or something, that would be cool. So to have heat and altitude would be nice. So at the moment we're living in third floor in an apartment, so I can't put a treadmill in there. That's not the best move to be liked by the neighbors.
I mean, you probably couldn't get a treadmill that would be good enough for you in there anyway. They're too heavy. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
a very average one, but I mean, you're looking at seriously heavy ones that you probably can't put in that level anyway. So
No, they are like 200 plus kilos, and then you need something to lift it in the window, and then you need to take out the window and then in again, and that's too much of a work and a hassle. So then I rather wait to I can build my own pain cave that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I love that. Knowing you probably dig the hole as well for the cave. But you're joining us on behalf of Nomio. Let's talk a little bit about Nomio. So, how do you use your Nomio?
So in the start I used the Nomio first for trainings and also for competitions. So but then I experimented a little bit with like for the sleep also by using it, and I felt like every time I used it, I woke up the day after feeling more rested and been sleeping. So then I feel like that helped, especially after the hard days, that I could sleep and recover faster and be better the day after. Also, if I took it on a hard session and forgot it in the evening, I still felt the effect the day after of the Nomio, that it, for some reason made me to recover faster. And also into competition, it was recommended in the start to have it if the race is on Saturday, you take the Nomio on the Friday and 2 hours before the race. But then I were thinking, if I want to sleep a little bit better, why don't take it one day earlier and sleep? I have 2 sleep, since then you're sleeping good into race night also, and have not have any lack of sleep the night before. And that I felt worked, and I stick to it still. So I take it. If the race is on Saturday, I start drinking Nomio on Thursday evening before bed, and on Friday, and on race morning. So and also when I used it in training, I have very rarely had bad session. And if I felt tired or been a bit under par for a session, I've still managed to get through it and not been destroyed the day after. So it's something there that's working.
Yeah. And on race day, how long? I know the protocol is generally 3 hours before, but you've also got a long race and an early morning. So are you using it closer to race time than 3 hours, or are you just
No,
not sleeping and to have your Nomio?
no, I haven't been actually stressed with like taking it later, since I've felt the effect of it the day after when I've been sleeping. So then I've been thinking like, okay, it's still working and it's in the body. So you can still have use for it, even if it's been going many hours. And I think it's also for the stress around it, to be thinking, you are thinking of a lot of things on race day. Then I just take it when I wake up, and then I'm done with thinking of taking anything. So then I don't forget it either. So it's just a routine. I have it also, like, take it when you wake up, and then it's either way 3 hours to the start, and then you can focus on packing your bag, eat, and be ready. So you don't need to stress with it. So
That's awesome. Well, it's super helpful to hear, and we appreciate Nomio making you available to us, and of course, you spending the time as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about Kona. You've not been, of course. The boys have. You've all won world championships. What do you think it's going to take to win Kona? Like, what is a day that wins Kona look like?
I do believe we need to run faster than the course record, and probably bike a lot quite fast this year also. But it's hard to say. Like, it depends on how hard the bike is going. But the bike has been on this season also. So, but I think we need to run close to 2:33 to take the victory there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's my prediction. And
What are you
so I
basing
think
that on?
how the level has turned the last 2 years. So the level is higher. So I would say we have we have raised the bar on how to race. Like, now it's not, you cannot like be 5 minutes behind the first biker. You need to actually be close to the first biker and still run a 2:30 or sub 2:30 marathon. That was how it was last year in Nice. You needed to bike with the best, and also quite hard, and then ran under 2:30 to win. And this year you see also, like, the runtime has not gone down. It's actually been the same or faster. So I think we need to go faster this year.
Yeah, that you also get everyone's A game, hopefully, on that
Yeah.
day, right? And the other way to answer that question, when you asked that question, Xylon, I was thinking because he's training with Kristian and Gustav, like the three of them get to look around and see what the level is, right? That's one of the huge advantages you have, is that you have three of the top best, the top however many triathletes you want to call, whatever group you want to call that. If you're all training together, you kind of know what everyone else is going to be is capable of. So it's you need to be a very confident human to train in a group like that. So yeah. You still with us, Casper?
Yeah, I'm still with you guys.
Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, sorry. No, we do have a lot of confidence, but we also have a lot of respect for the competition and our competitors. So, but yeah, it's we allow ourselves to believe and to what we want to achieve and what we think we can achieve. And yeah, I think that's a strength. So
couldn't agree with that more. Last question I had for you before Xylon can ask his last question. What do you see on the horizon for long distance triathlon? Like, what do you see coming that is interesting to you, or that you think listeners should hear and then think, oh, Casper said that on the podcast a little while ago?
I don't know. I think it's exciting with the pro series we have now, like with that we put like the best guys on the start line battling out in the pro series. Even though everyone is looking at Kona, it's a good thing to have the pro series and put the best guys. But it also rises the level for us, since then everyone wants to perform on the day and not people are. It's more competition and not people just showing up on one race and then do and wait for Kona. So yeah, it makes it more exciting, and it's good for us athletes also to have something to compete for.
Yeah, certainly from a like spectator's perspective, it's much better. Like
Yeah.
the number of great races we get to watch every year is much better. Sorry, Xylon, you're about to say something.
No, it's just my last question to him, and it's maybe unfair, so you don't have to answer it if you haven't thought about it. But the top 3 best triathletes of all time on your list.
Kristian, Jan Frodeno, and Alistair Brownlee.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I thought you'd get. No love for Harvey Gomez, but fair enough. The others
Yeah,
have got
he's
the accolades.
yeah, they are good, but yeah, Alistair has the two Olympics medals.
Yep.
And been doing quite okay on long distance also. So yeah, he don't have the medal in Kona, but he did very much good for the sport and still do. But like racing aggressive, racing hard, was someone. It was a guy when I did short distance. I looked up to him and how he was racing, and yeah, racing aggressively and not afraid to blow up. That's a cool. It makes the race more fun than just being in a pack and running fast. So, but yeah, he still biked fast and ran fast. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I think it's a great note to end it on. Hopefully, in the future, someone puts you on a list like that, and we can follow along.
So, yeah, it would be cool, but yeah, I would say it's hard to top Kristian, Olympic gold, Ironman world champion, 7.3 world champion. So world champion short distance. It's hard to beat a goat like that. So yeah.
As you say, time will tell, right? Like you got 11 hours of racing left this year, and many hours of racing left in your career. So
yeah, for sure.
We get to watch along, but really appreciate your time, Casper. We've loved having this chat. Really appreciate you joining us. Congratulations again on the win, and we'll be following along, as will our fans. We've got links to all your social media, your YouTube, your Instagram, and your Strava, all in our show notes already. So anywhere else we should direct people to?
No, I think we are all set. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thanks so much for chatting with Casper to come on here. That was very, very cool. Doctor's office. Anyone in the doctor's office this week?
Yeah, unfortunately. So Toulouse won the championship over the weekend. My top 14 team, 4 in a row, back to back to back to back. Unfortunately, in the semi-final, Antoine Dupont twinged his calf, and so he will not be going to the Nations Championship rugby. There's lots of debate. This is, I mean, calf injury, whatever, who cares? But I don't want to belittle it, but the key here is the context. He's not been down to the Southern Hemisphere since like 2019 or something, maybe earlier.
Wow.
Because they manage the loads of these players. This is all the stuff we've been talking about is like how many games they play and who owns those players. So the clubs own them. They get time off mandated at the end of the seasons. So this Nations Championship has been a real problem because for them because they haven't been sending players historically to the Southern Hemisphere during this time. This was the hope that now that it's an important tournament, they're going to send them. Dupont will go. They'll negotiate it with Toulouse, and he was going to go, but now he's injured. So there's lots of discussion around GOAT and great players, and the fact that he's never gone down there and won. That's part of the discussion at the moment. So I'm not convinced in a team sport that's always relevant because he's just out and out unbelievable. But nonetheless, I do understand the discourse. So it's unfortunate we don't get to see him down there, but probably good for New Zealand and Australia and the Southern Hemisphere teams.
Before we go, what are we watching this weekend? I'll be at the Tour de France, so not much TV time for me. But what are you watching?
I mean, we haven't even talked about the Tour de France. I feel like it's negligent, but also, I mean, we previously did previews and they weren't well received. If you want to hear about the Tour de France, let us know. We can put out some content for you if you want to hear about it. But I'll probably keep an eye on the Tour de France. I'm kind of interested in the team time trial. It's a cool way to do it in Barcelona, so I'll keep an eye on that. I do like the team time trials, but Marco's visiting, so I'm not going to be watching a ton of TV, as I mentioned, but there's some Diamond League at the Prefontaine Classic, so there'll be a mile there, which will be really cool. So I'll try and I'll watch that at some point, maybe when Marco's gone. The Nations Championship Rugby is on, so there'll be some big games there. France is playing New Zealand, Australia, I can't remember who they're playing, maybe Ireland. So some big games there, and then some Football World Cup perhaps as well, if I can. It's been a crazy... My Dutch are gone. They've ruined my prediction and they've ruined my supporting of the tournament. The Germans are gone. I tell you what, Paraguay beat Germany. Paraguay beat Germany. And you were talking rubbish about Australia drawing with Paraguay. And all of a sudden, Paraguay knock out Germany. The Australians are looking a lot better, mate. Bafana gone. You want to get on the Australian bandwagon? Get on, mate.
No, thank you. Never, ever, ever. Germany, man, please. It's only Germany. But
wow. Okay, let them know, mate.
They pretended they were good again for 5 minutes and reminded us that they were previous world champions, and then they did they lost on penalties, which is a flip of a coin. Right, let's get out of here. The World Cup is exciting. Hope you're enjoying it. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. And if you're new here, we drop a new episode every single Friday. So please make sure to subscribe. We'd appreciate that greatly. David, thanks so much for putting this together. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.